Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about ADACA, which is an indie first-person shooter giving sort of stalker-esque, sort of Halo-esque vibes. It has a free roam mode that I will be completely honest to say I haven't played a fuck ton, but it also has its main campaign, which I've completed twice now, and I absolutely love. At the end of this video, I will just do a quick announcement about the future of the channel since I just started in college and I have a couple of things I want to change and I talk about. So that'll be at the end of the video. And if you're not sticking around for that, that's completely fine. For now, let's just get right into it. So, what is ADACA? ADACA is a first-person shooter that sort of feels like playing through Halo or the Stalker games. It feels like a good combo. You also have the graph gun from Half-Life. However, you have it as an arm and you have it equipped at all times. And it's actually really fucking useful because you can not just shoot objects, but you can also pull guns, you can pull grenades, you can do a bunch of stuff with it. And it is essentially the same type of immersive sim game. It's a game where you have a bunch of options and a bunch of different ways to tackle practically all problems that are thrown at you. I will give you my perspective on some of them, and others I'll just leave for you to find out, because I think that's really the fun of it. Now, ADACA has two game modes. It has the free roam, and then it has the campaign. The free roam, you're given some quest, and then you're sort of just slapped out. That is, as far as I know, really not a huge amount of progression. I think there's a level system, and that's it. And then you go around, find weapons, and just explore and have fun. And that's all well and good, but where I had the most amount of my fun was the campaign. The campaign lasts about 5-ish hours, I'd say. I completed it twice now, just to 1, get footage, and 2, I really like the game, so just play it through again. And I can safely say it is really, really good. And the campaign itself is definitely going to be similar to you if you have played Half-Life, as this is also about a future world where you wake up on a Earth-esque world after being in cryostasis for, being a prisoner. So you wake up in cryostasis in this police control world. The enemies kind of sort of does look like the enemies from Half-Life, I want to say, but again, I haven't played Half-Life yet. It's one of those games that I was too young to play it, like at my time. It came out way before me and maybe before I got into gaming, so it's definitely something that I'll have to revisit at some point. But ADACA itself is very much one of those games where you have like a bunch of different ways to tackle it, despite it being linear. It also has a great level design, so let's get into it. So I just want to preemphasize this with just saying that I'm not going to guide you through the entire game. Like, I'm not going to give you a super large amount of spoilers. This is going to be spoiler-free. There's going to be one level I'm going to be talking about that's right now. If you don't want to listen to that, just skip to whatever part. I think this is going to be fairly short. But in ADACA, you have this level at one point in the game, right at the beginning or around that, where you enter a train area. Like, you can see a train that's, driving on the tracks, and there's a bunch of like houses and whatnot around. Now you have a couple of ways to approach this. You can, one, go over to the house, kill the enemies, grab their gear, and then walk underneath the bridge over to the next set of enemies. You can, 2, kill the enemies, grab their gear, and then walk across the bridge once there's no train and kill the enemies on the other side. You can do what I did, however. You can kill the enemies on the first house, jump onto the train while it's driving, manage to shoot the enemies as you're driving past them, and enter the next area. That is what ADACA does so well. That what I described right there, just having multiple approaches to every level. It's sort of a dead thing nowadays, I feel like. A lot of single-player games tend to just give you one option to approach an outpost as an example, and it sort of ends up being boring. To give you a very good example of it, Far Cry is the perfect one. You have either going loud or going stealth. If you go stealth, you'll sneak around, usually from somewhat similar angles, or you'll sit in the back with a sniper and just snipe the enemies, or you go in loud where you just rush in and shoot everybody. There's not a lot of thinking involved, in my opinion, whereas, sure, you have to think a little bit if you're going stealth, like, oh no, I'm about to get spotted, oh shit, oh fuck. Whereas in ADACA, if that was the thing you had to do, let's say you had to, control an outpost, what you do is you build up on top of a building. Because you can just move objects, remember, and you can jump on top of them. Then you'll most likely find a secret sniper or secret weapon, because the ADACA devs have them everywhere. For anywhere from completely unique weapons like a crossbow that you'll never see again, to a double-barreled shotgun, to a anti-matter rifle, they are everywhere. And it's fucking awesome. So you'll climb up, you'll find this anti-matter rifle, and then you sit there and you'll just take the enemies out. There are so many approaches in this game that it's hard to describe all of them. Because not only does it divert in the usual sense, like, oh, you have your different weapons. However, there's no stuff, right? But you can also just take a completely different thing and just build across to the area where you have to go and skip all the enemies. You have a lot of options in ADACA, and the depths that you do it. I have a clip here where I go out of bounds. Now, that's exactly what I mean with great level design. The levels are allowed for you to break them into the whatever slices you want. You can approach it however you want, and I think that's great from a single-player linear experience in the game. I think it's starting to get a little bit boring to have these games that kind of hold your hand throughout every part of it. Whereas in ADACA, it really doesn't. You are allowed to approach a game however you want. There is a linear path you can follow where it's like, okay, the game clearly wants you to do this, but if you divert, you're not punished for it. You're usually rewarded, either with new weapons and gear or secrets, or just different story beats. Like, there is so much stuff to find in this game. I have not found half of it. I'll be completely honest. There are anywhere from secret encounters to anything in between. There's so much shit that it's hard to really describe. But that's not really the main part of it, because you might be looking at this and then you're like, okay, well, that's all been good, but I'm not going to play something that looks like Roblox. Now, obviously, I talked about BattleBit earlier. ADACA is sort of the single-player variant of that. If you played Stalker, the franchise of the games, or Metro, it is the exact vibe you're going to have. It's this overly oppressed sort of post-apocalypse-esque vibe. And I think that's fucking amazing. This is the perfect game for you to pick up a guitar and just hit a couple of strings. Now, you can't do that, but it would be fucking awesome if you could. My point is just, it's about the feel. And even though the graphics are not necessarily the prettiest, they are very, very polygon, and they are very, very polygon. Like, they are Roblox-esque, and it's not a bad thing, though. Because here's the thing. You can argue that, okay, but I would rather have had super pretty AAA game graphics. But my question would be why? Because polygon graphics like this will hold up for longer. If you play this game 30 years from now, it will not be uglier than it is now. Because it's an art style, and it fits into the setting really well. The weapon models look great in the setting, which is also why I'm going to personally say that I think the game is very pretty. I think the game looks great. And I think it's sort of a shame to see some people sort of lambasted on it. Like, I've seen one comment at the very least, or like review on Steam, just calling it ugly, which is a shame. I, however, think it's fairly underrated. Sitting at around like 500 reviews on Steam, I think that's insanely underrated for a game like this. The quality at display here is insane. Because here's the thing, the gunplay feels fucking fantastic. Now, you might not want to use a gun, and I have respect for that. I can see you are a man of gravity arm as well. But if you want to, the gunplay in ADACA feels better than most AAA games. Very much like BattleBit had a really, really good feeling gun system, ADACA does as well. It very much so does feel like they put a lot of effort into just the feel and everything hitting just right, and it does. Almost all of the time. And it's fantastic. And then you might be like, okay, but I don't have a gun right now. I don't have ammo. Well, in that case, just pick up the nearest spell and fucking toss it at the enemies, killing all of them. Because you can do that. You can also just decide, okay, I don't want to deal with them, and just like walk away. Like, you have so many options. And when I say walk away, I mean walk around, like you can build above them or something. Like, there are options for you to approach the game in different ways. And I think that's very important to see. Because, again, like I said, it's a dying genre, the immersive sim, with only a couple of games really doing it, and one of the biggest studios behind immersive sim games recently released an absolute garbage one, being Redfall. And I really hope to see the genre return, and I think to see that you have to look towards indie games like ADACA. Because, see, here's the thing. ADACA is really the definition of a sandbox game. You can do so many things in ADACA. And I think it is incredibly fun to do. Because while yes, the world is eerie and it is hostile, once you have mastered that hostility, you feel like a god. You feel so powerful in the game. It is insane. Because all of a sudden it becomes a world where people and like the enemies are hunting you, to a world where you pick up the nearest barrel and just toss it at an enemy while his gun is flying across the screen after he got the barrel in his face. You grab it mid-air and then start shooting the enemies with it. Like, There are possibilities, is what I'm saying. And while, yes, ADACA does have some issues, one of which we'll get to very shortly, I think it is an incredibly good game in almost every aspect. So, to give you a quick overview of the story of ADACA, it's essentially kind of simple. You are an indebted soldier working for a megacorp that is in a spaceship that has crash landed on another planet. Once you wake up and you realize that, you've been in cryo sleep, and you end up working for somebody, a faction called the Scrappers. The Scrappers are essentially your low, kind of like lay low faction that are just here to survive and, do their thing. And eventually you realize that they're being hunted by, the megacorp you work for. A mad scientist called Dr. Chop sort of wake you up, help you with your arm, and so on, and you help him in return. That's how you get to work for the Scrappers. Now, while working with him, you realize that he's honestly sort of insane, as his idea is that he can control a sentient guard AI that is hidden deep within the anomaly zone. So, as you delve after him into the anomaly zone to 1, figure out why he's still in there, and 2, stopping him from touching that AI, you just don't know that yet. You go on all sorts of crazy adventures and all sorts of crazy things happen, which eventually leads up to a very, I'd say, mid-ending, where you yourself gets to just slap around a bunch of people, but I'm not going to get into spoilers for that one. Along the way, you'll meet quite a few different factions. They include, obviously, megacorp police people, but they also include the way more interesting collective, which is like this group of really religious fanatics that sort of, how should I put it, they like praise and worship this AI god thing. They like sort of believe in the entire bending flesh into machine, so they like combo that, kind of like the necromex from Warhammer, I think they're called. Correct me if I'm wrong there, I might be. But they are very, very close to that entire idea, where you're like half human, half machine, the machine is better, all that sort of stuff. And that's honestly kind of interesting. The main thing that I wanted to criticize ADACA on, like the main issue I have with this game, is that the story is super confusing and hard to find, as it isn't always directly relayed to you. There's a bunch of things that you have to go out of your way to find, and I think that's a shame because the world of ADACA is super interesting, and it's something that I recommend you look into when you are eventually playing this game. It's $20 on Steam, by the way, but it's really something that I think is a shame that the story isn't worn more on its sleeve, because it's something to be proud of. The story is fantastic. It is so good, and it's very clearly inspired by Half-Life, Stalker, and Halo. And honestly, it should be more. There should just straight up be more. That's the main two issues here. That the story isn't related properly, and there isn't enough of the game. And I think that's a shame. And I think that's important to say, because the main issue is exactly that there isn't enough. I wish there was more. I could easily spend more time in this world. And I don't know what the plans for the future of ADACA is, but I hope to see expansions to it. I hope to see more story content. I hope to see more campaign missions, because they're great, they're fun, and they're very atmospheric. There's a bunch of things you can interact with because of your gravity arm, and the game plays around with that a lot, and I think that's super important. So to end off the really review, I would just say that I think it's pretty cool. I think it's really worth playing and talking more about. And I think it's weird to not see more people having it played, like having it in the library at all. I think it's a little bit weird and strange. So that's about it for the video. If you want to stick around for the rest of this video, it's just going to be me talking about some future plans of mine, like for how I want to change the channel and evolve a little bit. Partially because I just started college, but also partially because I just moved out and I have some ideas that I can't get to work. So we'll see. So here we start my rant section, sort of. Thank you for watching this. If you are sticking around for it, thank you for that, and let's just get straight into it. So I just started in college, which also means that I have a lot less time. Between being social, which is something I do want to do more in this time around, as I haven't really before, and between, school itself, I don't have a lot of time anymore. Because yes, I do play video games on this channel, and I get some people like, they watch that and they're like, that's no work. When the reality is, you're absolutely right, playing the video game itself is not the work here. What is work and like what is time consuming is having to complete it fully before I record a video. Because yeah, I do want to beat it multiple times. I do want to do all of these things, and at the moment, at the rate that I'm going at, I simply have to pick off a lot of things. That there's a lot of games I can't touch. As an example, it would be impossible for me to talk about Baldur's Gate 3 here. Absolutely impossible if I had to keep up the current rate, as I would have to complete the entire 300-hour story, plus all the extra content that I'd like to cover as well. So as such, I think a really good solution to it is that I cut my content up into different sections. I'll try to have a big video out, like a review analysis type of video out once a month. And for the rest of the month, I will sporadically, like once or twice a week, upload videos on whatever subject is just interesting to me at the time. But I will still keep, like, once or twice a month, I'm going to try to have a bigger analysis review style video up, because I think they're great to make and I think they're great fun to make. But at the moment, I want to cover bigger games as well as small. I don't just want to focus on one genre or one thing, and I can't really right now, and that's a bit of an issue for me, as I feel like I want to do that more. So this is not me quitting, this is just me sort of changing up the content. And obviously, if you end up disliking the way I change it up, just like let me know in the comments. Just tell me. Because it is important to just give your feedback. I do read every comment and I do listen to what you have to say. That being said, my ideas so far is that I want to cover the entirety of the Ratchet and Clank series. I also really do want to talk about Nightmare Reaper, but that is a fairly long indie game actually, and I am just beaten Act 1 of it, and I want to do New Game Plus in it. So that's that. I also want to talk about Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3. I haven't started on Baldur's Gate 3 yet, but it's definitely on my list. So there's a bunch of things that I really want to do. Like, that's a major videos that I want to talk about. But yeah, so you can expect a couple of extra uploads every week that are maybe smaller, that are maybe larger, and they might be talking about some different things than just video games, because I think it's important to keep some variety in our content. So if you're interested in that, feel free to check it on. If you aren't, I understand fully, and no hard feeling from me. For now, thank you so much for just watching this. It means the world to me. It means the world that you're here listening to me rant and ramble about absolutely fucking nothing. So thank you for that. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here for me. And I just wanted to say you're all amazing. I hope you have a wonderful week.